Today, why I bought this Mac Studio computer, and given my workflow, why I love it and I'm keeping it, and yet why I don't think a lot of photographers necessarily need one. Well, hey everyone, Hudson here. Welcome to this week's video. It's going to be kind of a short and sweet video in response to a lot of questions that I've been getting. People have been saying, well, you were a PC user. How come I see a studio on your desktop, a Mac Studio? And you're right. I mean, I've actually been PC, then Mac, then PC, and a foot in both worlds. Right now, I'm Mac desktop, PC laptop. For a long time, I was PC desktop, Mac laptop. Then a while, PC both. And I'll tell you why I'm back to having the Mac Studio here on my desktop. But why I don't know, and why I love it for what I do, and why it really fits into my whole system for the way that I store data and move data, and the way that I work with files, and the kinds of files that I work with. But I don't know that a lot of people would realize a benefit from spending the money that one of these costs. So we'll talk about all of that. Really quick note before we jump in. I'm going to be on the road when this video drops. I'm going on the road teaching workshops with a bunch of amazing people in the Owens Valley, as well as the Grand Tetons and Yellowstone region. So we're going to take some questions on the road, do some approaching the scenes on the road with answering your questions and having discussions based on some of your input. So we're going to draw that from people submitting questions for the next office hours, the big free group collaborative get-togethers that we have on Zoom and YouTube Live. So, we'll be looking at those questions. I hope you guys will think about submitting some questions you're curious about, anything photographic. The sky's the limit on topics. So go ahead and submit those at hudsonhenry.com/office hours, and sign up for those office hours. So, all right. That said, I just want to launch into some discussion about this machine right here. What I love about it, why it's a good fit for me, but maybe not necessarily something that you need. I analogize this. My aunt was asking about a laptop computer recently, and she's a big Apple fan. She uses iOS, and she's had nothing but Macs her whole life from the very beginning. And she was curious about whether she should get the new MacBook Pro. And my comment to her was, you should get the new MacBook Air, the M2. The reason being, it's light, it's got plenty of processing power, it's a little cheaper, it's got a longer lasting battery. It's going to be an amazing computer for you because, you're mainly surfing the web, getting entertainment, drafting emails. You're not really doing heavy-duty editing. You're storing your images, working through all your iOS apps on the Mac system. It's going to be amazing for you having that lighter weight, longer-lasting battery, and more cost-effective and fun, in general, to get that MacBook Air M2. I think there are a lot of people out there photo editing that are always looking for something that's going to increase their photo editing. I just got to say that, working with the desktop that I've been working with, which was a relatively fast Dell XPS desktop, and my XPS 15 laptop, which isn't here right now, but I use that on the road still. I'm still using a PC laptop. I don't have a lot of problem pulling sliders or editing something quickly in Photoshop. Even files, big, nearly 50 megapixel files from my Nikon Z9 or my Leica Q2. There are times where it bogs down a little bit, blending big panoramic mergers where you've got dozens of images from those big 50 megapixel cameras. There are times, certainly, where I was feeling very slow working in Adobe Premiere for my video editing work, especially if I've got 4K video footage from a GoPro and from my phone and multiple video cameras running, doing a video for you guys, where I'm blending all that. Sometimes it would slow down. I'd have to render portions of the video. Even though I've got a fast system, it just was a little tedious at times to be working with all those files. Sometimes it took the system a long time just to load and preview all the files. And the biggest thing for me with the PCs that I've been working with the last couple of years is the limitation of only having a couple of really fast ports. They have fast USB ports, and there are fast USB ports, but those Thunderbolt ports are blazingly fast. Big, huge pipelines data can flow through. Thunderbolt 3 and Thunderbolt 4. I mean, you're talking about 40 gigabyte per second pipelines. I know there's a new USB standard coming out that doubles that to 80. But let's not even go there right now. That's like USB 4.2 or something, and I don't think anything's really shipping with it yet. Thunderbolt is fast. You know, you think about the fact that if I plug, say this hard drive, 700 megabytes per second, pretty average speed reading and writing with this Samsung T7, into a Thunderbolt port, you know, that's 0.7 gigabytes. That's not even using 1/40th of the capacity of that channel if you plug it in via a Thunderbolt cable. All right, so the problem with PCs are, I don't know, I haven't been able to find any of them, even looking at big video editing machines that cost about the same amount of money as one of these new Mac Studios that have more than 2 Thunderbolt connections on it. And you know, the reason I originally, or the last time I went to PC, the reason I made the switch from my trash can 2013 Mac Pro over to a very fast i9-9900 PC was the fact that when Mac launched the new Mac Pro to replace that 2013 Mac Pro, it was a very expensive machine that was spec'd significantly less enticingly than the PC that I bought. A very expensive computer, the Mac Pro, the latest one. And I just wasn't very happy. It was clearly designed for people at big production houses like Pixar or MGM or someplace where it's all on a production budget and they're fine spending $10,000 or $12,000 to get the computer up to the specs that they need for the video work that they're going to do. You know, I was able to spec a PC similarly for, you know, $3,500. And I just complained, you know, Mac was leaving people, creative professionals like me that do video editing and really high-end photo editing, a little bit behind. And when they brought out the Studio, the minute I saw it, I knew I had to try it, at least try it with my particular workflow. And the reasons are, it's got a very fast processor. It's got an insanely screaming fast processor. I bought the Ultra. It's as fast as you can get. And it's got a very fast video processor. I was curious how that would work out, but it's working out really, really well. And it has, if you buy the Ultra, 6 Thunderbolt ports. So 6 of those 40 gigabyte per second pipelines into the motherboard, as well as a 10 gigabit Ethernet connection. And the reason that's important for me is that I store my big archive of video and photo data on a network attached storage device that has 10 gigabit Ethernet capability. So it can come into my computer 50 terabytes of data that I store at a gigabyte a second. Very, very fast. Very, very fast. So, you know, for me, I was curious about trying this, particularly for video editing. And it's blown me away. You know, when I start this machine up, which takes just a few seconds to be logging into it from dead cold, I fire up Adobe Premiere with a big project. It loads, all the previews of the videos are loaded, and I can scrub through multiple videos at very high resolution, and there's never a lag. It just speeds up my whole process for video editing. So video editing is really the reason that I have this. Do I notice a big difference in photo editing with it? Only very, very, very occasionally. I will say that, you know, if I'm editing a bunch of images in Lightroom that I want to blend into a panorama in Photoshop, and I select them all and load it, Photoshop loads quicker than I'm used to. It renders the panorama a little quicker than I'm used to. It just doesn't ever have a hiccup. I never hear the fan come on this machine. It's dead silent, and it never misses a beat. I don't think I've ever felt the need to restart it in the last few months of using it. And I've been using it long enough now to be madly in love with using it for video editing and photo editing. But as I said, for basic photo processing, even the big files out of my Nikon Z9, I don't notice a difference pulling sliders in Lightroom and Photoshop, changing settings. I don't really notice a big difference from a computer that I've been using for several years. Now that computer was spec'd very well. It's a 64 gigabyte XPS Special Edition Dell that was bought several years ago. I have a whole video about it. I'll link it in this video's description. 64 gigs of RAM, an NVIDIA 1080 very, very fast video card from that time. And, you know, Thunderbolt card on it, so faster, you know, 2 Thunderbolt fast connections I could utilize to bring data in. Still though, you know, it bogged down doing this kind of heavy duty video editing that I'm doing. And I love the fact that I have 6 fast connection ports. You know, I bought the Ultra for this machine just so that I could future-proof it as long as I can. I don't anticipate needing to upgrade this for a long time because it has 6 ports that can bring in 40 gigabytes per second, which is beyond what I can even populate right now, as well as that 10 gigabit Ethernet connection and 128 gigabytes of RAM. I just don't see having more need than that for a while. That's my hope. I should never say never, but, and I'll show you how I have this set up right now. It has a 2 terabyte hard drive in it. I have plugged in this very fast OWC Envoy Express 500 gigabyte M.2 NVMe drive. This is basically an enclosure in a drive. I did a whole video about hard drive speed recently, and I'll link that in this video's description along with there's a download accompanying that video that talks about different hard drive speeds. But that works as a cache drive. It's virtual memory, and Photoshop and Adobe Premiere and On1Photo RAW all cache to this when they need to offload data for really quick access. And it's nice to have a separate channel that's moving on its own Thunderbolt 4 channel, so there's nothing getting in its way moving through the machine. And then I've got my Lightroom catalog on this very fast Lexar external SSD drive, this Lexar Blaze drive that puts out about almost a gigabyte a second read speed and write speed. Very, very fast. So that lets Lightroom access its metadata and preview caches and all those files really, really fast. I have my video projects on this drive. And the neat thing is I can plug this Lightroom drive into my laptop and boom, I can launch my catalog on my Dell laptop, my PC. I can plug in this SSD drive. I've got them formatted exFAT so that they'll work with both the PC and the Mac. I can launch Premiere projects and have resources that I put into videos and edit videos on the road and on the Mac and the PC interchangeably. And then I have a CalDigit Thunderbolt 3 hub. I'll put a link to their newer Thunderbolt 4 hub in this video's description, but it's got a very fast SD card reader, and I plug in my CF Express B reader, and I'm plugging in my Creative Labs USB-C speakers to it, and it's got a headphone jack and a micro SD card slot for like drone footage and GoPro footage, and then I have a USB hub plugged into it, and I've got my webcam, my 4K webcam plugged into it. I've got my BenQ light powering off that. All that stuff is coming through one Thunderbolt port into the back of my computer because it's that big 40 gigabyte pipeline, and it puts all these ports at my disposal from one socket on the back of the computer in this nice little spot. So for me, the fact that it's got that 10 gigabit Ethernet connectivity, just like plugging a network cable into the back, I get a gigabyte a second from my big RAID array of drives, my Synology network attached storage, and that it has 6 Thunderbolt ports, and that its harmony of its chip, its processor, motherboard, and video processor are so in sync that I can do these big video editing projects like it's not even breaking a sweat. Now, for a lot of you, I think if you've got an iMac that's working great for you, I'm not a big fan of the all-in-one computer. That was one thing that really turned me off of Mac when they kind of abandoned this idea. They had the Mac Mini and they had the uber expensive new Mac Pro, and I was like, I'm left out. This is the machine that would have kept me from ever going to PC if they'd launched it at the end of the 2013 Mac Pro's life cycle. You know, I think for those of you using a fast computer and you're not noticing slowdown and lag, editing and brushing in Lightroom and doing local adjustments, I don't think this is going to speed you up that much. If you're doing video editing and you notice that your machine is slowing down a bit, by all means, you know, if you've got the resources, this machine will make you happy. You'll never hear its fan. It starts instantaneously. It just runs like a top and doesn't break a sweat with anything I throw at it. I can have On1Photo RAW, Lightroom, Photoshop, Adobe Premiere all running at the same time on this machine, and it doesn't seem to even have a hiccup. So for someone that's a big power user like me, absolutely, this machine is awesome, and I'm a huge fan, and I say kudos to Apple for building the system that creatives like me need. If your photo editing is a little lighter, just tweaking images and doing an occasional panorama, I think this is more horsepower than you need. Certainly the Ultra is more horsepower than you need. The standard Studio would be fine, but I'll bet you'd probably do really well with a 16-inch MacBook Pro or any number of other products. And again, if it's not broken, don't fix it. The reason that I can't get rid of it, again, is video editing. All right, everybody, so that's why the Studio is on my desk. I hope you enjoyed the explanation. I want a huge thanks to everybody, give a huge thanks to everyone who's been sharing, liking, subscribing to this channel. It makes a huge difference. Thanks for using my links. They're always updated at hudsonhenry.com/ATS links. Be sure to send us some questions because we're going to hit them on the road on this awesome field trip through Owens Valley, the Grand Tetons, Yellowstone. I am so excited. I'll actually be out doing that while you watch this, so I'm having fun. And I hope that all of you are, and you can send those questions in when you sign up for office hours, hudsonhenry.com/office hours. So while I'm out having fun in the field, I'll just give you my best wishes that you are having fun, being creative, and staying safe. We'll see you next week.